The horizon blazed with the artificial dawn of a new solar cycle, casting long shadows across the control deck of the Galactic Alliance flagship, Horizons. Outside the reinforced viewports, stars smoldered like distant embers against the vast emptiness of space. At the edge of the Outer Rim territories, silence reigned supreme, but not for long. Major Lyra Nova Calder stood at attention before the holographic display, her slender frame belying the reputation that preceded her. At 24, she was the youngest pilot ever to command an interceptor squadron in Alliance history. Her dark eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the tactical readout while her fingers tapped an impatient rhythm against her thigh. "The Shadow Fleet has been tracking our movements for the past 72 hours, announced Rear Admiral Helena Voss, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the tactical map. "Intelligence suggests they're planning something big, something that could cripple our defense network permanently." Nova studied the older woman's expression, searching for any hint of doubt or fear. She found none. Voss had been hardened by 3 decades of interstellar warfare. Emotion was a luxury she had long since abandoned. "With all due respect, Admiral," Nova ventured, "if they know where we are, why haven't they attacked?" A thin smile crossed Voss's lips. "Because they're waiting for us to make a mistake, Major, and we're about to oblige them, on purpose." The tactical display shifted, zooming in on a remote sector where swirling cosmic dust obscured conventional sensors. Hidden within that celestial shroud lay the prize, the Shadow Fleet's command vessel, a behemoth of engineering that coordinated their entire offensive operation. "We're going to launch a decoy offensive," Voss explained, drawing out their forward battalions while a specialized strike team penetrates their defenses and neutralizes the command ship. Nova's heart rate quickened. "And my squadron will be leading this strike team?" "No, Major." Voss's expression remained impassive. "Your squadron will be the strike team." Before Nova could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. Red emergency lights bathed the room in a crimson glow as officers scrambled to their stations. "We're under attack!" shouted the communications officer. "Multiple hostiles emerging from the nebula's eastern quadrant." Voss's eyes narrowed. "They've anticipated our move. They're striking first." She turned to Nova, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Get to your ship. The mission parameters have changed." Nova sprinted through the corridors of the Horizons, the ship shuddering beneath her feet as enemy fire connected with the outer shields. Fellow pilots and crew members rushed past her, faces etched with determination and fear. When she reached the hangar bay, chaos reigned. Maintenance crews worked frantically to prepare the remaining fighters as damaged vessels limped back into their docking bays, trailing smoke and debris. Her Starwing interceptor, unofficially named Stardust, waited in its launch cradle, sleek and deadly. Unlike the other vessels in the fleet, Nova's ship had been retrofitted with the experimental Argus AI navigation and combat system, a technology still in its testing phase. The symbiosis between pilot and artificial intelligence was meant to enhance reaction times and tactical capabilities. When it worked properly, "Systems check complete," came the measured voice of Argus as Nova settled into the cockpit. The neural interface activated, connecting her consciousness to the ship's computer. "Good morning, Major Calder. Combat readiness at 97%. "What happened to the other 3%? Nova muttered, strapping herself in as the canopy sealed with a pneumatic hiss. "The left stabilizer sustained minor damage during our previous engagement. I recommend—" "Not now. Argus." Nova cut off the AI as her communication system crackled to life. Admiral Voss's voice filled the cockpit. "Major Calder, the situation has deteriorated rapidly. The Shadow Fleet has disabled most of our offensive capabilities. We have only 3 operational fighters left, including yours." Nova's stomach knotted. "What about the rest of my squadron?" A pause, lost in the initial barrage. The words hit Nova like a physical blow. 12 pilots, friends, comrades, people she had trained with and led into countless battles, gone in an instant. She forced herself to breathe, to focus. Your mission remains unchanged, Voss continued, her tone leaving no room for emotion. You must neutralize the Shadow Fleet's command vessel. Our intelligence suggests they're deploying a new weapon system capable of disrupting our gravitational stabilizers. If they succeed, the entire alliance will collapse within days. Nova's fingers tightened around the controls. I understand, Admiral. You have 45 minutes. Major. After that, their weapon will be fully charged and operational. 45 minutes? Nova's voice cracked slightly. Admiral, with all due respect, even with the Argus system, that's barely enough time to reach their position, let alone penetrate their defenses and— It's all the time we have, Voss interrupted. The Alliance is counting on you. Nova, dare to dream, dare to face it. The familiar motto of the Academy echoed in Nova's mind as the communication link terminated. She sat in silence for a moment, the weight of responsibility settling over her like a shroud. Major, Argus's voice interrupted her thoughts. The other 2 operational fighters are awaiting your command. Nova took a deep breath, pushing aside her doubts. Initiate launch sequence. Alert the others to form up on my position once we clear the bay. Acknowledged. The launch cradle hummed to life, propelling Stardust toward the hangar exit. As they accelerated into the void, Nova caught a glimpse of the horizons. Its once proud silhouette, now marred by impact craters and exposed internal structures. Several sections were venting atmosphere, the escaping oxygen crystallizing instantly in the vacuum of space. 2 other fighters fell into formation beside her, an older Scorpion-class interceptor and a modified reconnaissance vessel that had been hastily armed for combat. Their pilots acknowledged her with brief communications bursts, confirming their readiness despite the overwhelming odds. Argus, plot the most direct course to the Shadow Fleet command ship, Nova ordered, banking her fighter away from the crippled Alliance flagship. Course plotted, the AI responded. However, I must point out that the most direct route exposes us to 17 known enemy defense platforms. Nova grimaced. Then find me a route that won't get us killed before we even get close. Computing alternative trajectory. A pause. Alternative found. This route utilizes the gravitational distortion of the nearby dust cloud to mask our approach. However, it extends our travel time by 7 minutes. 7 minutes we don't have, Nova muttered. She considered her options, aware that every second of indecision brought the Alliance closer to defeat. Show me both routes. The cockpit display illuminated with 2 distinct paths, one a straight line through heavily defended space, the other a meandering course that skirted the periphery of the battlefield. Major, came a gruff voice over the comm. Lieutenant Jax here. My Scorpion doesn't have the stealth capabilities of your fancy prototype. If we take the covert route, we'll be detected anyway. Confirmed, added the pilot of the reconnaissance vessel. My engines are already redlining just to keep pace. We need to make a decision quickly. Nova closed her eyes for a brief moment, feeling the weight of command. When she opened them again, her resolve had hardened. We split up, she announced. Jax, you take your Scorpion through the direct route. Create as much chaos as you can. Make them think you're leading a larger force. Suicide mission, Jax replied flatly. But I'm game. Nova continued. Reconnaissance. You take the stealth route. Your priority is gathering intelligence on their defense systems and transmitting it back to what's left of the fleet. And you, Major? The reconnaissance pilot asked. A grim smile touched Nova's lips. I'm going to do something incredibly stupid. She switched to a private channel with Argus. Calculate a trajectory that takes us directly through the dust cloud itself. Major Calder, the AI responded. The density of particles within the cloud will cause significant damage to our hull integrity. Additionally, The electromagnetic disturbances will disrupt communications and possibly my own operational capabilities. But they won't be expecting it, Nova countered. No sane pilot would fly through that death trap. Precisely my point. Nova's smile widened. Just do it, Argus, and divert power from non-essential systems to the forward shields. As the three Alliance fighters separated, each pursuing their designated path, Nova steered Stardust toward the swirling mass of cosmic debris. The dust cloud loomed before them like a storm front, flashes of energy crackling through its depths as particles collided and reacted with one another. Entering dust cloud in 3, 2, 1, Argus announced, its synthetic voice betraying no emotion as they plunged into chaos. Immediately, the view screen filled with swirling particulates, ranging from microscopic dust to chunks of rock the size of transport shuttles. The shields flared continuously as they deflected the smaller objects, but the larger ones required manual evasion. Nova's hands danced across the controls, her reactions enhanced by the neural link with Argus. Shield integrity at 82% and declining, the AI reported. Estimated time to emergence, 6 minutes, 43 seconds. Route me Jax's progress, Nova ordered, narrowly avoiding a particularly dense cluster of debris. The tactical display flickered to life, showing Lieutenant Jax's Scorpion engaging the first wave of Shadow Fleet defenders. Despite being outgunned and outmaneuvered, the veteran pilot was wreaking havoc among the enemy formations, drawing significant attention away from the other approaches. Lieutenant Jax's tactics are unorthodox, Argus observed. His survival probability is decreasing with each engagement. Nova gritted her teeth. That's the point. He's buying us time. A sudden impact rocked the interceptor, sending it into a momentary spin before Nova could stabilize their flight path. Warning indicators flashed across the console as a section of the hull registered damage. Port wing compromised, Argus reported. Structural integrity reduced to 67%. Recommend immediate course correction to avoid further. No, Nova cut in, pushing the engines harder. We stay the course. How much longer until we're through? 4 minutes, 17 seconds at current velocity. The dust grew thicker, reducing visibility to near zero. Nova relied increasingly on Argus's sensor interpretations, trusting the AI to guide them through the treacherous environment. Another impact shook the craft, more violent than the first. Hull breach in secondary compartment, Argus announced. Emergency containment fields activated. Shield integrity at 51%. Nova fought to maintain control, her muscles straining against the G-forces as she executed a series of evasive maneuvers. How's Jax doing? A pause. Lieutenant Jax's signal has been lost. The words hung in the cockpit, their weight almost tangible. Nova swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus on the mission. Jax had known the risks, just as she did. And the reconnaissance vessel? Still transmitting from the periphery. They have successfully avoided detection thus far. Small victories, Nova thought grimly. But would they be enough? The tactical display updated, showing the Shadow Fleet's command ship at the heart of their formation. Surrounding it were layers of defense platforms, fighter squadrons, and capital ships, a formidable barrier between Nova and her target. Time check, she demanded, her voice tight. 36 minutes until the enemy weapon reaches full charge, Argus replied. We will clear the dust cloud in approximately 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Nova's mind raced, calculating trajectories and assault vectors. Even with the element of surprise, breaching the Shadow Fleet's defenses would be nearly impossible for a single fighter, no matter how advanced. Argus, analyze the reconnaissance data. Find me a weakness, any weakness, in their defensive perimeter. The AI fell silent, processing the information being transmitted by the remaining Alliance vessel. Nova used the momentary reprieve to check her own physical condition. Her flight suit had automatically tightened around her legs and abdomen, preventing blood from pooling during high-G maneuvers. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cockpit's climate control, and her muscles ached from the constant tension. She thought of her squad, 12 of the finest pilots in the Alliance, now reduced to stardust. Had their sacrifice been in vain? Would hers be as well? Dare to dream. Dare to face it, she whispered to herself, drawing strength from the Academy's motto that had guided her career. Analysis complete, Argus announced. I have identified a potential vulnerability in the enemy's defense network. The command ship is protected by an Oppressor X shield system, the most advanced in the Shadow Fleet's arsenal. How is that a vulnerability? Nova asked, frowning. It is not, directly. However, the energy requirements for maintaining such a shield are substantial. The command ship must periodically realign its power distribution to prevent overload. During these realignments, there is a 3-second window where a specific section of the shield weakens by approximately 22%. Nova's pulse quickened. Enough for a targeted missile strike? Negative. The shield would still deflect conventional weaponry. Then what good is... However, Argus continued, a precisely calculated energy pulse delivered at the exact frequency of the shield's resonance could potentially create a cascading failure. Hope flared in Nova's chest. Can we generate such a pulse? Affirmative. By reconfiguring our weapon systems and channeling emergency power reserves, we can produce a single pulse of sufficient strength, but the timing must be perfect, and we would need to be within 200 meters of the shield perimeter. 200 meters. Close enough to see the individual rivets on the command ship's hull. Close enough that a single point defense laser could vaporize them instantly. How often do these realignments occur? Nova asked. Based on observed energy fluctuations, approximately every 7 minutes and 18 seconds. Nova did the mental math. That gives us 4, maybe 5 opportunities before their weapon is ready. Correct. However, I must emphasize that positioning ourselves for such an attack would require navigating through the entirety of their defense network. The dust cloud began to thin, the cockpit view screen gradually clearing to reveal the expanse of space beyond. In the distance, the Shadow Fleet's formation glinted like a constellation of malevolent stars. We're about to emerge, Nova noted. Argus, kill all non-essential power. Life support to minimum. Weapons to stand by. Let's try to slip out of this cloud as quietly as possible. Acknowledged. Entering minimal emission profile. The lights in the cockpit dimmed, and the gentle hum of the environmental systems faded to near silence. Nova felt the temperature begin to drop almost immediately, her breath forming small clouds in the increasingly cold air. Stardust drifted from the dust cloud like a ghost, running dark against the backdrop of space. Ahead lay the gauntlet of enemy defenses, and somewhere in that maze of ships and stations was Lieutenant Cade Spectre Reyes, Nova's former wingman and closest friend. Intelligence had reported his capture during a previous engagement, but his fate remained unknown. As if summoned by her thoughts, a weak transmission broke through the communication silence. Repeat. Alliance fighter. This is Lieutenant Reyes. Do you copy? Nova's heart leapt to her throat. Spectre, is that you? The response came through a haze of static. Nova, thank the stars. I thought everyone was dead. Nearly everyone is, she replied grimly. Where are you? Detention level of a Shadow Fleet frigate. Managed to hack into a communication terminal during a guard change. His voice was strained, punctuated by labored breathing. Listen, I don't have much time. They've been interrogating me about Alliance defensive protocols. Nova checked her tactical display. Can you give me your coordinates? A pause. Transmitting now. But Nova, you can't come for me. Whatever mission you're on, that has to take priority. The coordinates appeared on her screen, placing Spectre aboard a frigate positioned near the outer defensive perimeter. It wasn't directly on her path to the command ship, but it wasn't far off either. Major, Argus interjected. A detour to rescue Lieutenant Reyes would reduce our already limited time frame by approximately 6 minutes. 6 minutes they couldn't spare. Nova knew it. Spectre knew it too. "The command ship is your target, isn't it?" Spectre asked, his voice growing weaker. "They're planning something big, Nova. Something that could end the war in one stroke." "I know," she replied softly. "We have less than 35 minutes to stop it." A bitter laugh came through the static. "Then what are you doing talking to me? Get moving. Major, that's an order." Despite being the same rank, Spectre had always pulled the seniority card when he wanted to end an argument. It had infuriated Nova during their academy days. But now, it brought a sad smile to her lips. "Since when do I take orders from you, Spectre?" "Since I became the voice of reason in this partnership." His tone shifted, becoming more urgent. "Nova, I'm serious. I've seen their weapon. It's like nothing we've ever encountered. If they bring it online..." "I understand." Nova's grip tightened on the controls. "But I'm not writing you off, Spectre. Once I've neutralized the command ship, I'm coming back for you." "Always the optimist," he replied, a smile evident in his voice despite the pain. "I've missed that." The transmission crackled, threatening to cut out entirely. "They're coming," Spectre hissed. "Remember your training, Nova. Remember what Commander Santiago taught us." The mention of their former training officer, killed during Nova's first combat mission, sent a pang through her chest. Santiago had been more than an instructor. He had been a mentor, a father figure to the orphaned cadets under his wing. "I remember," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if Spectre could still hear her. "I'll keep broadcasting on this frequency," he said, his voice now barely audible through the increasing interference. "Might be able to provide some intelligence on their movements. Just don't do anything stupid, Nova." "Too late for that," she replied, but the transmission had already ended. Nova sat in silence for a moment, the ghosts of her past and present crowding the small cockpit. Then, with a determined exhale, she re-engaged the ship's systems. "Argus, plot an approach vector to the command ship that keeps us as far from enemy sensor coverage as possible." "Computing. Major Calder. My analysis suggests that the reconnaissance vessel has been detected. They are currently evading pursuit on Vector 73 Mark IV. Nova glanced at the tactical display, watching as the small blip representing their last ally weaved through a squadron of enemy fighters. "Can they make it?" "Probability of escape is 23% and declining." "Another sacrifice. How many more would this mission claim?" "They knew the risks," Nova murmured, more to herself than to Argus. "We all did." With the reconnaissance vessel drawing enemy attention, Nova guided Stardust toward the perimeter of the Shadow Fleet's formation. Using the debris from previous battles as cover, she maneuvered through the defensive grid, every sense heightened as she anticipated detection at any moment. "Major," Argus announced, "I am receiving fragmented transmissions from Lieutenant Reyes. He appears to be providing tactical information about patrol patterns." Sure enough, Spectre's voice occasionally broke through the static, delivering terse updates on enemy movements. The information proved invaluable as Nova navigated the increasingly dense network of ships and defense platforms. "Shadow Corvette passing your position in 3, 2, 1. Nova held her breath as the enemy vessel glided past, less than 50 meters from their position. The Starwing stealth systems and minimal power signature kept them invisible to conventional scanners, but a visual inspection would reveal them instantly. "Clear," Spectre confirmed after a tense moment. "Next patrol in approximately 40 seconds." Nova resumed her advance, pushing Stardust to its limits as she wove through the labyrinth of enemy vessels. The command ship grew larger in her view screen, a massive structure bristling with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. Surrounding it was the faint shimmer of the Oppressor X shield system, an almost imperceptible distortion in the fabric of space. "Time check," she requested, her voice barely above a whisper, despite the fact that no one outside the cockpit could hear her. 26 minutes until the enemy weapon reaches full charge," Argus reported. The next shield realignment will occur in approximately 2 minutes. 43 seconds. Not enough time to reach an optimal attack position. Nova would have to wait for the subsequent realignment, assuming they remained undetected that long. Patrol incoming, Spectre's voice crackled through the comm. 2 fighters on sweep pattern Alpha. Nova quickly assessed her surroundings. There was no debris large enough to hide behind in their immediate vicinity, and changing course would expose their engine signature to enemy sensors. Argus, can we mask our heat signature if we power down completely? Affirmative, but we would be effectively blind and immobile for the duration. Do it, Nova ordered. Emergency power only. The cockpit plunged into darkness as all systems except basic life support shut down. Nova felt the temperature plummet immediately, her breath forming visible clouds in the frigid air. Through the view screen, she watched as 2 enemy fighters passed within meters of their position, their pilots oblivious to the Alliance vessel drifting in their midst. Clear, Spectre confirmed after an agonizing 30 seconds. But Nova, they're increasing patrol frequency. Something's got them spooked. Reinitialize systems, Nova commanded, as soon as the enemy fighters were out of visual range. The cockpit hummed back to life, displays illuminating one by one as power returned to the various systems. Nova checked the tactical readout, noting with dismay that the path to the command ship had become even more heavily defended in the short time they had been powered down. They know something's coming, she realized aloud. They've detected our approach somehow. Not necessarily, Argus countered. The increased security could be standard procedure as their weapon nears completion. Nova wasn't convinced, but they had no choice but to proceed. How long until the next shield realignment? 4 minutes, 18 seconds. Just enough time to get into position, if they moved now and didn't encounter any further obstacles. Nova gunned the engines, abandoning stealth in favor of speed. Stardust shot forward, rapidly closing the distance to the command ship. The response was immediate. Alarm signals blared across multiple frequencies as enemy sensors locked onto the approaching Alliance fighter. Point defense turrets swiveled to track their movement, and nearby patrol vessels altered course to intercept. Major, we have been detected, Argus stated unnecessarily. You think? Nova replied through gritted teeth, executing a series of evasive maneuvers as the first volley of enemy fire streaked past their position. How long until we're in range for the pulse attack? At current velocity, 1 minute, 53 seconds. However, our probability of reaching the target unscathed is now less than 7%. Nova ignored the dismal prediction, focusing instead on the intricate dance of survival as she weaved through increasingly dense enemy fire. Stardust responded to her commands with preternatural precision, the neural link allowing her to execute maneuvers that would be impossible for most pilots. Nova! Spectre's voice cut through the chaos. They've locked down the communication system. I won't be able to... His transmission cut off abruptly. Spectre, Nova called, but received only static in response. A barrage of laser fire bracketed their position, several beams grazing the Starwing's already damaged hull. Warning indicators flashed across the console as multiple systems reported critical failures. Shield integrity at 34%, Argus reported. Hull breaches detected in 3 sections. Weapon systems operating at 61% capacity. Nova swore under her breath, pushing the interceptor into a steep dive to avoid an incoming missile. The projectile detonated behind them, the shockwave buffeting Stardust and sending it into a momentary spin before Nova could regain control. Distance to target, she demanded, executing a barrel roll to evade a pursuing fighter. 800 meters in closing. Shield realignment in 2 minutes, 6 seconds. Too long. They'd never maintain their approach for that much time under such heavy fire. Nova needed to change tactics, immediately. Argus, divert all power from non-essential systems to the engines and rear shields. We need to break away and regroup. Acknowledged. The cockpit lights dimmed again as power was redistributed. "May I inquire as to your plan, Major?" Nova banked hard, steering Stardust away from the command ship and toward a cluster of smaller enemy vessels. "They're expecting a direct assault, so we're going to play hide-and-seek instead." Using the enemy's own ships as cover, Nova wove through the formation, staying just ahead of the pursuing fighters. Each near miss, each last-second evasion depleted more of her physical and mental reserves. But she pushed through the exhaustion, driven by the knowledge that failure meant the end of everything she had ever fought for. "Major," Argus alerted her. "I am detecting a familiar energy signature from the frigate where Lieutenant Reyes was being held." Nova spared a glance at the tactical display. "What kind of signature?" "Consistent with an Alliance emergency beacon. It appears Lieutenant Reyes has escaped his confinement." A fierce grin spread across Nova's face. "That's my wingman?" The tactical situation evolved rapidly as Spectre's escape created additional chaos within the enemy fleet. Several vessels broke formation to pursue the escaped prisoner, temporarily creating gaps in the defensive perimeter around the command ship. "Argus, time until next shield realignment?" 53 seconds, Major." Nova made a split-second decision. "Plot an attack vector through the gap created by the frigate's departure. We're going back in." "The probability of success remains extremely low," Argus cautioned. "Never tell me the odds," Nova retorted, swinging Stardust around in a tight arc and accelerating back toward the command ship. The renewed approach caught several enemy gunners off guard, allowing Nova to penetrate deeper into the defensive perimeter before concentrated fire resumed. Stardust shuddered under the impact of multiple hits, systems failing in cascading sequence as damage accumulated. "Shield integrity at 17%, Argus reported. "Structural failure imminent on multiple hull sections." "Distance to target?" 350 meters. Shield realignment in 29 seconds. They were going to make it. Barely. Nova pushed the interceptor to its absolute limit, ignoring the warning klaxons and the acrid smell of burning circuitry that now filled the cockpit. "Prepare the energy pulse," she ordered. "Configure it exactly as we discussed." "Configuration complete. The pulse will be ready to fire in 22 seconds. The command ship loomed before them, its massive bulk filling the view screen. At this range, Nova could see the intricate patterns of energy flowing across the Oppressor X shield, subtle variations in density that marked the approaching realignment. "Major," Argus's voice took on an unusual hesitancy. "There is something you should know." "Kinda busy right now." "Argus," Nova replied, narrowly avoiding a barrage of point defense fire. "I have not been entirely forthcoming regarding the shield's vulnerability." That caught Nova's attention. "What do you mean?" "The 3-second window I mentioned is accurate. However, I detected an additional vulnerability, a specific harmonic frequency that would amplify the effect of our pulse by approximately 200%. Nova's brow furrowed. "And you didn't mention this because exploiting this vulnerability would require executing a maneuver with a 97% fatality rate for the pilot. I was protecting you." The admission stunned Nova momentarily. The AI had made a value judgment, had chosen to withhold tactical information to preserve her life. "What maneuver?" she asked, her voice steady despite the implications of Argus's revelation. "The 1,000-star cut technique you developed during your final year at the Academy. It was deemed too dangerous for practical application." Nova remembered it well. A complex series of thrust vectoring and weapon timing that allowed a fighter to pass through a defensive barrier by creating a momentary disruption field. She had named it after an ancient sword technique from Earth history, more as a joke than anything else. The Academy instructors had banned her from even attempting it in simulations after her third virtual crash. "Shield realignment in 15 seconds, Argus announced. Nova made her decision. Configure the pulse to match the harmonic frequency you identified, and upload the 1,000-star cut parameters to the navigation system. Major Calder, I must emphasize the extreme danger of this approach. The maneuver has never been successfully executed outside of theoretical models. Then I'll be the first, Nova replied, a strange calm settling over her as she committed to the potentially suicidal course of action. Do it, Argus! The AI complied. The flight controls reconfiguring under Nova's hands as the specialized maneuver was loaded into the system. The neural link between pilot and computer deepened. Argus's processing capabilities melding with Nova's instincts to create something greater than either alone. Shield realignment in 5, 4, 3. Nova took a deep breath, flexing her fingers around the controls. 2, 1. Realignment initiated. Now! Nova cried, engaging the 1,000-star cut sequence. Stardust leapt forward like a living thing. Its every system pushed beyond design specifications as it accelerated toward the shimmering barrier. Nova's consciousness expanded through the neural link, feeling every minute adjustment of the ship's trajectory, as if it were an extension of her own body. The world narrowed to a single point of focus, the barely perceptible fluctuation in the shield's energy pattern that marked the realignment in progress. With precision, born of countless hours in the simulator and the augmented reflexes provided by Argus, Nova guided the interceptor toward that exact spot, their velocity creating a bow wave of superheated particles before them. Energy pulse charged, Argus reported, its synthetic voice somehow conveying urgency. Firing solution locked. Nova felt rather than saw the moment of perfect alignment, a harmony of vectors and energies that existed for less than a heartbeat. Fire! The pulse erupted from Stardust's weapon array, a concentrated burst of energy calibrated to the exact resonant frequency of the Oppressor X shield. It struck the barrier at the precise moment of maximum vulnerability, creating a ripple effect that spread across the shield's surface like cracks in ice. Simultaneously, Nova executed the final phase of the 1,000-star cut, rotating the interceptor on multiple axes while maintaining their forward momentum. The maneuver created a localized distortion field that, combined with the effects of the energy pulse, opened a temporary gap in the otherwise impenetrable barrier. Stardust slipped through the momentary breach, the shield resealing behind them with a flash of displaced energy that temporarily blinded Nova. When her vision cleared, they were inside the defensive perimeter, less than 100 meters from the command ship's primary power core. We did it, she breathed, hardly believing their success. Argus, we actually did it. Indeed, Major. Though I feel compelled to point out that we are now trapped inside the shield with no apparent means of escape. Nova's grin widened. One problem at a time. Target their power core and prepare to fire all remaining weapons. The Starwing's targeting systems locked onto the exposed power core, a pulsating mass of energy that served as the heart of both the command ship and its devastating weapon. At this range, even Stardust's damaged weapons would be more than sufficient to trigger a catastrophic overload. Target locked, Argus confirmed. However, we are now being targeted by internal defense systems. Fire everything, Nova ordered. Maximum yield. The interceptor shuddered as it unleashed its remaining arsenal, a barrage of energy beams, missiles, and projectiles that converged on the vulnerable power core. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Cascading explosions rippled across the command ship's surface as secondary systems failed, each detonation adding to the chain reaction. Major, we have 19 seconds until the primary core reaches critical mass. I recommend immediate withdrawal. Nova checked the tactical display. The shield was still active, trapping them inside with the dying behemoth. Options for escape? The shield will collapse when the power core detonates. However, the resulting explosion will almost certainly destroy this vessel before we can reach safe distance. A familiar voice crackled through the comm system. Not if you have a ride waiting, Nova. Spectre, Nova's heart leapt, Where are you? Look to your starboard side. I borrowed something from our hosts. Nova glanced out the view screen to see a Shadow Fleet fighter approaching rapidly, its distinctive silhouette unmistakable, even with Alliance markings hastily painted on its hull. You stole an enemy fighter? She asked incredulously. Commandeered, Spectre corrected. In the line of duty. Now get ready to abandon ship. That core is going critical any second. Nova hesitated. Argus, can you transfer your core programming to a portable data unit? Affirmative, but it will result in significant loss of higher functions. Do it, she ordered. I'm not leaving you behind. As Argus began the transfer process, Spectre maneuvered his stolen vessel alongside Stardust, matching their velocity with expert precision. Through the view screen, Nova could see him in the cockpit, bloodied and bruised, but very much alive. 10 seconds until core detonation, Argus announced, its voice already showing signs of degradation as its consciousness compressed into the portable unit. Nova unstrapped from her seat, grabbing the small data crystal that now contained Argus's essence. The cockpit was rapidly depressurizing as multiple systems failed simultaneously, the life support barely maintaining a breathable atmosphere. 5 seconds. With a silent prayer to whatever forces might be watching over foolhardy pilots, Nova triggered the emergency canopy release. The explosive bolts detonated, blowing the transparent barrier away from the interceptor and exposing the cockpit to the vacuum of space. In the same motion, she activated her flight suit's emergency propulsion system, launching herself toward Spectre's waiting fighter. The distance between the two vessels seemed insurmountable, a yawning chasm of empty space that threatened to become her final resting place. But Spectre had anticipated her trajectory, positioning his craft to intercept her drifting form. His gloved hand extended from the open cockpit, reaching for her as the stolen fighter's artificial gravity field began to pull her in. Their fingers connected, clasped, held. With a strength born of desperation, Spectre pulled Nova into the cockpit with him, sealing the canopy mere moments before. Stardust exploded behind them, consumed by the secondary detonations spreading from the command ship's dying core. The shockwave caught them despite Spectre's evasive maneuvers, sending the fighter tumbling through space as the Oppressor X shield finally collapsed. Through the chaotic spin, Nova glimpsed the command ship's final moments, a spectacular implosion followed by an expanding ring of energy that engulfed the surrounding vessels. "Hold on!" Spectre shouted as he fought to regain control of the unfamiliar craft. Nova gripped the edge of the cockpit, her body pressed against Spectre's as the G-forces threatened to tear them apart. The stolen fighter's structural integrity groaned under the strain, panels buckling as they pushed the vessel beyond its design limits in their desperate flight from the expanding destruction. And then, suddenly, they were clear, emerging from the debris field into open space, just as the command ship's power core reached final detonation. The resulting explosion illuminated the battlefield like a newborn star, the brilliant flash momentarily overwhelming the fighter's polarized view screen. When the light faded, the Shadow Fleet's formation had disintegrated. Without the command ship's coordinating influence, their remaining vessels moved in disarray, many already retreating from the battlefield. "We did it," Spectre breathed, his voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. "Nova, we actually did it." Nova stared at the tactical display, watching as the enemy signatures scattered and fled. "Check the mission clock," she requested softly. Spectre glanced at the chronometer. 45 minutes and 23 seconds since the initial attack. A tired smile curved Nova's lips. Close enough. As they set course for the rendezvous point where the remaining Alliance vessels were regrouping, Nova cradled the data crystal containing Argus's compressed consciousness. The AI had been more than a tool. It had been a partner, making sacrifices and judgments that went far beyond its programming parameters. "Is that what I think it is?" Spectre asked, nodding toward the crystal. "Part of him, at least," Nova replied. "Enough to rebuild, I hope." Spectre's expression softened. You always did get attached to your tech. Remember that training drone at the academy? What did you name it? Sparky. Zip, Nova corrected with a faint smile. And he was a good drone. The banter felt surreal after everything they had endured. But it was also comforting, a return to normalcy, or whatever passed for normal in their chaotic lives. As they approached the Alliance flagship, damaged but still operational, communications flooded their channel. Reports of the Shadow Fleet's retreat. Congratulations from Admiral Voss. Questions about their improbable survival. Nova let Spectre handle the responses. Her attention focused on the vastness of space visible through the viewscreen. The void that had nearly claimed her life now stretched before her like an invitation, a challenge waiting to be accepted. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Shadow Fleet were regrouping, planning their next move. And somewhere beyond that, other threats and wonders awaited discovery. The ceremony 2 days later was brief but meaningful. Standing before the assembled crews of the Alliance fleet, Nova accepted the promotion to colonel, the youngest in the organization's history. The applause was deafening, a cathartic release after the tension and losses of the recent battle. Colonel Lyra Nova Calder, Admiral Voss announced, her weathered face showing a rare smile. Your actions have secured the future of the Alliance and demonstrated the highest qualities of leadership and courage. Nova stepped forward to accept the formal insignia, but raised her hand when Voss attempted to pin a Medal of Valor to her uniform. With respect, Admiral, she said, her voice carrying across the hushed assembly hall. This victory wasn't mine alone. She glanced toward Spectre, standing at attention despite his injuries, and thought of the 12 pilots lost in the initial attack, friends and comrades whose sacrifice had made their mission possible. She thought of Argus, whose consciousness was even now being carefully reconstructed in the Alliance's most advanced computer labs. The credit belongs to everyone who fought, everyone who sacrificed, Nova continued. If you wish to honor me, let it be through supporting the next generation of pilots, ensuring they have the training and resources they need to face whatever challenges lie ahead. Admiral Voss studied her for a long moment, then nodded with newfound respect. As you wish, Colonel. The Academy's training program will receive full funding and priority status. Later, as the formal reception wound down, Nova found herself standing alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars that had nearly claimed her life. The endless expanse of space stretched before her, a tapestry of light and darkness that both terrified and called to her. Thinking of making a run for it? Spectre's voice broke through her reverie as he joined her at the viewport, moving carefully to accommodate his still healing injuries. Nova smiled without looking away from the stars, just wondering what's next. Besides rebuilding the fleet, developing new defensive strategies, and training a fresh batch of hotshot pilots who think they know everything, Spectre leaned against the railing beside her. I'd say we have our work cut out for us. Someone has to keep you from pulling stunts like the 1,000-star cut on a regular basis. He nudged her shoulder gently. I've requested reassignment as your executive officer. Warmth spread through Nova's chest at the news. Despite everything they had endured, or perhaps because of it, they were still a team. The famous Nova and Spectre show, back in business, she mused. The Shadow Fleet won't know what hit them. Let's hope we get a little downtime before the next crisis, Spectre replied. I've had enough near-death experiences to last at least a month. Nova laughed, the sound echoing in the empty observation deck. It felt good, cleansing, somehow, to find humor after so much darkness and loss. A soft chime from her pocket interrupted the moment. She withdrew the specialized communicator linked to the laboratory where Argus was being reconstructed. Colonel Calder, came the excited voice of Dr. Alara Winston, the Alliance's leading AI specialist. We've successfully reintegrated 97% of Argus's neural patterns. He's asking for you. Nova exchanged a surprised glance with Spectre. He's asking for me specifically? His exact words were, "Is Major Calder, correction, Colonel Calder available? I have several observations regarding our recent mission that may prove valuable for future engagements." A smile spread across Nova's face. "Tell him I'll be right there. And Doctor, thank you." As she pocketed the communicator, Spectre raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like your AI buddy is as dedicated to the cause as ever." "He saved my life," Nova replied simply. "Saved all our lives, really." "Then I suppose I owe him a thank you as well." Spectre gestured toward the exit. "Shall we?" As they left the observation deck, Nova cast one final glance at the star-filled vista. The void had nearly claimed her, but it had also revealed her true strength, not just as a pilot, but as a leader. The youngest ace in the Alliance fleet had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through reckless bravery alone, but through trust, cooperation, and the willingness to adapt. Whatever challenges awaited beyond the horizon, she would face them with the same determination. After all, the Academy motto had never led her astray. Dare to dream, dare to face it. The journey continued, and the stars beckoned.